This is one of Kelp HR's initiative where we are working very closely with industry's best people who bring in a lot of value to the subject that Kelp HR is close to, right? This time we have partnership with a company called Quinnergy. Quinnergy works in assessment, coaching, leadership development, especially for women leaders. So today with me, I have two eminent folks, Bhavana, Issar and Neeraja Ganesh. Both of them, if you look them up on LinkedIn, are very accomplished leaders. And I'm not going to speak about what they do, but for me, they are very, very close because they work on this very interesting subject. And I had the honor to be part of one such initiative that they had. So this is about women leaders, okay? What did I learn in that conversation, in that training program, is that as women leaders, we are going through, there are many things that pull us back, hold us back, okay, in doing the right things. But if you look at it and we look within, there are many things that we can take charge of and move on. So handing the baton to both the wonderful hosts here, Neeraja and Bhavana.
Thank you so much, Smita. Pleasure to be on this platform and to interact with so many women out here. I'm not sure if there are men also, but we would like it if the men are also around. The conversation around women and challenges and leadership, cannot be had only with women. So I hope there are more men other than Vivek here. When we were discussing about the context that we should probably present to be able to further drill down on the aspects that we wish to kind of bring out through the rest of the session today, which particular challenge should be brought on. We decided to talk about the imposter syndrome, the famous terminology I think many of us would have come across and actually experienced, and it never goes away. Bhavana and I were talking earlier today, and it has still not gone away, and it continues to be there in me and Bhavana today as we are talking to you all. So, I would like to start with a small narration of a story where I kind of was grappling with this and how I tried to kind of deal with it. I'm not saying overcome, but deal and cope with it. So a couple of years ago, somebody approached me, and said that MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the USA, runs a yearly global innovation challenge. So you will have companies and individuals who put out, their ideas and proof of concepts, and sometimes even, companies that they have started off because of this innovative idea that they have as part of this challenge. And they needed jury members to be able to evaluate and take it from the regional level to actually the global level and identify the winner. And as they were telling me this, I thought, okay, they're going to tell me, can you help me identify some jury members? And they said, Neeraja, will you be on the jury? And my first reaction was, me? And I would have said, no, you know what? I can actually put you across to someone who would be the right person. And this is what I would have done maybe, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And it was on the tip of my tongue, but I stopped myself and I said, they're asking me to be on the jury. Let me say yes. A big, difficult, yes, it was. But I think I kind of trained myself that I should not let go of opportunities that come my way. We will deal with whatever, circumstances and challenges and issues that will happen because of the yes later, but go ahead and say yes. So a very difficult yes, and I said that yes. And so they went away after that meeting, and through the night I kept telling myself, what have you done? Do you even know, are you qualified to be, a jury member? Because these are going to be great guns who are going to put through their innovative ideas, and what do you have in terms of credentials? Anyway, I slept through it, and I was able to kind of calm myself through a couple of days later. And then, I received an email from them saying, can you please send me your picture and bio and social media handles, because now we're going to put this out on our website and on all social media. And I said, oh my God, now the world is going to know. And they'll get to know, what an imposter I am. How can, Neeraja become a jury for, something like this? Again, struggle, but you have committed, so I sent through that email. So to cut the long story short, it went out on social media and I kept cringing, saying somebody is going to call me someday and said, how come you got that position, right? I don't think, you're there yet. And then the application started flowing in, and as I was reading each of those ideas, I said, Neeraja, next time, do not ever say yes to something like this. Well, the year went through, and the next year again, they approached me, and I think in some ways, as I said, I'm training myself. I said a yes again, despite the fact that I went through the same emotions. So that's what the imposter syndrome is for many of us women, and I believe men also have it. But what I understand is that they are able to kind of put it, quieten it down and go ahead. But for women, it actually is a stumbling block. There are not too many of us who are able to say a yes or take the opportunity and say, let me figure it out as the things unfold, and let go of many such opportunities. So I thought, let me start with this conversation. And Bhavana, would you like to say something about this or share an experience that you have had a similar one?
Yeah, certainly. There's so many of them. I had it just now before this session. The moment Smita said we will be going live on Facebook, I could sense my heart sink. I'm like, oh dear, what is that going to be? Not that one doesn't have, enough and more sessions in person, or one does not have enough and more, videos or conversations otherwise. But there's something about being in public light and open to criticism. And sometimes I feel that it's a little simpler and easier to let your inner critic cut you to size before anybody else will. So, just save yourself the pain or the anxiety of what somebody else might say. You hold it and you tell yourself, and the inner voice says that you're not enough, or you're not ready, and that's what the imposter syndrome seems to be. I remember the first time I was having a conversation about wanting to do something on social media for my organization, and discussing it with a young lady. And this young lady said, Bhavna, you really need to work on building your personal brand. And here was this young person who I thought, okay, tell me what you have to tell me. And as she went on, I could hear so many voices in my head saying, really, you're going to teach me, you're going to tell me, I don't think this is okay. And then, I said, you know what, really, my trouble is, I think I'm not ready. And this, I, I can still visualize. We were sitting in a car, and she was sitting next to me, and she was this absolutely confident young lady. And she just looked at me and she said, I know, imposter syndrome. God, even now I can feel like I wanted to reach out and get at her throat. Seriously, what are you saying? Imposter syndrome? I don't have that. I'm this person. I'm confident. I, I never say imposter syndrome to myself, but when I reflected on it over a period of time, I realized that one of the ways in which I perhaps sabotage myself, and one of the ways in which I hold myself back, and one of the ways in which I don't experiment enough is that there is this little voice that keeps saying, are you ready? Are you enough? Have you done enough? Are you worthy? And that's another way of that's the way that the imposter syndrome shows up. And it shows up for me every single day. So it is something that one contends with. It is something that one grapples with. Um, and I'm sure it is true for. So what I remember is that the imposter syndrome was first identified as a thing that was identified as women. It was significant a characteristic or a trait found in women. However, as the studies were extended, it was found that it is something that is true both for men and women. And it is just a case of, the gender disparity in our society and how girls are brought up or women are, the micro inequities or the ways in which there is certain stereotyping for women that is done over a period of time, that they tend to question their capabilities far more than boys and men do, because boys and men are encouraged to go out in the arena, get the scars, get the battle wounds, and continue. Whereas there is perhaps a lot of anxiety about being wounded in the arena for girls and women. I also think that our bioexistential reality of the fact that our bodies are a lot more vulnerable has some role to play and contribute to the fact that there is a need for us to protect ourselves. And therefore, we tend to be overcautious and overzealous, and that contributes to that inner voice that says, "Be careful, make sure you're not hurt," etc.
Amazing, the imposter syndrome. This is something very, very interesting, Neeraja and Bhavana. Yes, when y'all were narrating this, and I could think of so many instances, like just in the morning where I refused an opportunity. Just last week, I said, no, I don't think I'm up for it. I'm not ready for it. No, these are some things which just comes before saying a yes all the time. So thank you for that input. Amazing.
So, we also were talking, like in my case, I was saying that first reaction is to say a no, and which is what I've done through my life, but I've kind of tuned myself in some ways to, not say that no immediately. Maybe even take some time and then go back and say the no or a yes. Even that's a big, big step in itself. And that reflection sometimes yields a yes, and then you go ahead and take on those opportunities. So Bhavana, I was, of course, in a few conversations that I've been having with Raghu, we've been talking about all of this. While we can talk about the stereotypes that women are like this and women deal with and have more imposter syndrome, and we discussed that men and women probably have it. What was an aha moment for me was the fact that each of us has a different, or there are different archetypes at play. And each of us has some archetypal energy in us. And maybe unconsciously we act from a particular archetypal energy or a propensity, whatever we may want to call that term, in situations. But if we are able to reflect and hence, act on that situation from a different propensity, the outcomes could be different. The outcomes could possibly be more positive for us to move on. So do you think that we should probably explore some of those? Maybe Shireen can help us put out some of those propensities on the screen, and we could talk through that and then explore.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good way to do this is to do it experientially. And I think let's have an exercise. So, that allows for the participants to put a little stake in the ground, to discover themselves and to participate in this, less like, something that is a conversation just you and I are having, but something that they can feel as a part of them. So over to Shireen, who will be taking us through an exercise.
Thank you, Bhavana. Thank you, Neeraja. So everybody, we're going to do this exercise. It's going to be a really fun exercise. So I want you to take a sheet of paper and a piece of, and a pen. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, Shireen.
Okay, super. I'm just going to the next screen right now. Just a minute. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to show you 5 pictures. Now, and we want you to go ahead and observe these pictures. And for each picture, we would be, showing about, say, 4 options. Now, what you would need to do is you would need to, rank these 4 pictures, and it should be top of mind. So it could be your, what is your, what would you react, or how would you react to that picture, top of mind, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And then, as I said, we're going to make a grid like this. Now everybody can see this. So please quickly make a grid like this so that you can capture your scores, and then you can go ahead and total it at the end of all the 5 pictures. So there would be 5 pictures shown on the screen. Each picture would have about 4 options, and each option you would need to read through it and then quickly rank the choice of your option. For example, if say that your option, your topmost option for picture number 1 is going to be B, then you go ahead and mark 1 there. And your topmost, the second topmost option is C, then you put 2. Then D would be 3, and option A would be the least option, which would be 4. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Maybe you can put it on the chat as well.
No, it's clear, Shireen.
It is clear, right? Okay, great. Let me just check. Okay, great. So the first picture, you're all ready? So you see this on the way to a parking lot, which says way to car parking. And then you see the scribbled at the back of the car parking sign, which says bakery ahead. Okay. So imagine a signboard which says way to car parking, and just behind that, you have a shabbily written bakery ahead like this. Okay. So the options are, option A is against the law, prosecute. Option B, why didn't I think of that? And option C, what lengths people have to go to just to make a living in these times. Option D, I wonder how many other boards in the city get used like this. Your topmost option gets the number 1. Your least most option would get the number 4. So in the grid, you have to have all the 4 numbers. Please do not miss out any number. It's 1 to 4. Your topmost 1, then the next topmost would be 2, 3, and the least would be 4. Shall I move to the next picture?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the picture. These are the options. Option A, in what way do we create a reliable legal system to prevent this? Self-reliant and strong and not be vulnerable. Option C, how do we enable the victim to heal? Option D, do we need the hype around these incidents? They are statistically extremely rare occurrences. Okay. picture number 3.
Pause for a while, Shireen, on this.
Okay.
On the next one, sorry. On the new picture, just pause on the picture for a while.
Okay.
Yeah. And then get to the state. Thank you.
All right. The options. Option A, we need to plan the trek so that there are no surprises. Option B, how exciting, let's go. Option C, have we taken enough medicines and aids in case of accidents? Option D, have we studied the area? Do we have maps? Okay. The next picture.
I thought one is what you prioritize first. One is
That's
top.
right. Yes, one is your top and then the 4 is the least. Yes. Okay. I'm going into the options. Exercising is a great discipline to cultivate. Option A. Option B. I need to exercise to develop my strength. Option C. Exercising is very important to develop health and prevent illness. Option D. Exercising enhances epigenetic factors and reduces chances of heart disease. Shall I move on to the next picture? The final picture.
Yes.
Okay. Option A, man-woman encounters ought to be kept within appropriate limits. Option B, falling in love is a great feeling. Option C, deep mutual nurturance is so warm and comforting. Option D, love is a matter of having the right chemistry. Okay. Please total each score. Let me put up the slide once again. and round off the least score that you have received, because the top priority was number 1. So round off the least score that you have received on the total. Okay. If you've done it, over to Bhavana.
All right, so I think what would be interesting, Shireen, is for us to have people report in what, use the chat box to write in which one, A, B, C, or D is your least score. So let's just see how many are in A.
Okay, Neeraja says A. Okay.
Oh, this is
C, B. Okay, I see a lot of B's and C's here. Okay, there is a tie. There is A and B. For Meera, it's a tie. Okay, for Smita, it's B and C both. Okay. Okay.
B's.
A lot of B's, yes. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of B's there.
There is a B. Yes.
B and C tie. Okay. There's a tie between C and D, Balaji. Okay. Vinod says it's a C for him. Nice. Okay. B. A and B. There's a tie between A and B. There's a tie between C and B.
Got it. Clearly, there is a very large population that is what we would categorize as propensity B,
Yes.
or an outlook. And though I have to say, I am delighted to find that in this group because my personal one is B. But
I'm feeling very lonely now.
But I do think that sometimes it is also a function of the context that we are in. So, for example, you will notice, Shireen, if you can go back to the slides and look at the statements B, C again, there is a certain trend to the type B and C. So we will take you through this types or propensities that we usually use for understanding our inner selves or our orientation towards just the way that we see ourselves, the way that we see the world, and therefore our leadership styles. So let's start at the bottom right. So the bottom right is the propensity 1 or the A, and man, a woman encounters ought to be kept within appropriate limits is likely to be an A. Exercising is a great discipline. We need to plan the trek so that there are no surprises. In what way do we create a reliable legal system to prevent this? And, there is a law and people need to be within the law and follow the rules, etc. So can you build a certain character or a certain characteristic of somebody who would have this the highest? There is a certain way of looking at following structure, following the system, following the predefined way of doing things. And then there is the B's, which is propensity 2, which is falling in love is a great feeling. I need to exercise to develop my strength. How exciting, let's go. I wish people would be self-reliant, strong, and not be vulnerable. And why didn't I think of that? What I'm going to do is, as I'm reading this out, request you all to use the chat box to say what are some of the thoughts and feelings that are happening for you as you hear this. Do you have any questions, or do you have any doubts, or do you have resonance? So it is quite likely that you feel that, oh, this makes sense to me. I can see a pattern. Or is this a question? What does this say? Whatever it is that is coming up for you as you see yourself in this picture, please do exercise, claim your space, and use the chat box to write. Sure. Payal, it'll be great if you can talk about what are the other questions that are coming up in other blocks. Questions are lovely. Questions are the pathway to personal growth, in my personal opinion. Moving on to propensity C. Propensities 3 or C would be deep mutual nurturance is so warm and comforting. Exercising is very important to develop health and prevent illness. Have we taken enough medicines and aids in case of accidents? How do we enable the victim to heal? What lengths people have to go just to make a living? Do you see a certain tone and a tenor in those statements? There is a certain gentleness and a kindness and a thinking of the other person, maybe the victim, the one that needs support, that is happening in this particular propensity. And finally, the propensity D, thanks Meera, yeah. There is the propensity 4, or what was D in your exercise. Love is a matter of having the right chemistry. Exercising enhances epigenetic factors by a factor of 3 and reduces the chance of heart disease by 40%. Notice the emphasis on numbers and statistics. Have we studied the area? Do we have maps? Do we know exactly where we are going? Do we need the hype around these incidents? They are statistically extremely rare occurrences. And finally, how many other boards in this city get used like this? And there's a certain pattern to this particular propensity as well. I am curious. So Smita or Shireen, if you could help me with if there are questions or thoughts that have come up before Neeraja.
So, Bhavana, Meera is saying that I feel these answers would have been different to me if these were asked 10 years back. Okay, so that a realization and feeling, that is what she's feeling.
So here's my thing about thoughts and feelings. You know, it's really a thought. I don't know if it's a feeling. How does it really make you feel would be a question I would ask you, Meera, because what you're saying is you can't feel a thinking, right? So you are actually analyzing it, and you're saying that I would have been different. I am different. How does it make you feel?
So the point that I was trying to make here is, had these questions been, or the posts, the pictures with the questions that's been posted 10 years before, probably I would have chosen like, you know what, let's go, how exciting it's go. But now you're asking me, okay, I would say I'll do planning and then I would go. That's what I was trying to say. I think I just had to filter it and I just clicked yes. So the way, the more matured and we are gracing through the age, I think our choices also differ. That's what I was just trying to say there.
So, yeah, no, I think there is some kind of an evolution that happens, and there is some kind of a preference that evolves given our life experiences as well. Although I would reckon that there are some things that are inherent in us. There is a certain.
I agree with you. I mean, I totally echo you on that. Some things are very instinct, right? Yeah. I mean, if you are adventurous by nature, you just always choose the same. I totally echo you on that. But some of the features, right? Say, for example, if last 10 years, if I would say that, okay, let's go against the law and prosecute because you are in that young blood and everything, then you start putting your brains together. Now you say that, okay, let's get the legal things solved, right? So how few shift, that mind shift happens. That's what I was just trying to say, but I agree with you. So there are some instincts which remain same across.
Absolutely. I would think that one of the other things about these propensities is that there is perhaps a seed of each one in all of us. It isn't that we are one more than the others. You would have seen in your scores, it's quite likely that it shifts. You wouldn't have ranked one on every question or every statement. It would vary as well. And possibly it does. It's a mix. And it is contextual as well. And the point being that as an aware leader, and as especially an aware woman leader, it might be absolutely critical for us to step back and say, I might have a natural pull to be one or the other. But in this context, which is the one that I'm going to deploy? And if I have a good understanding of who I am, as well as what the context demands, then I can actually choose which of these propensities I want to deploy for this particular instance. And that's the essence of your self-awareness through these propensities or archetypes. I think there's a question about what do B and D signify. I don't know the second part.
Sangeeta is saying C seems to be more to do with empathy and taking precautions to prevent any potential risks. And B has more of I statements and verbalizing of emotions. So people are kind of getting it, they're able to visualize, I think, a character out of it. Whether they're able to identify themselves with the character is the next step, but at least they're able to draw the character representation is what I get.
I think so. I think it is bang on, Sangeeta, which is that, yes, there is a certain pattern. I'll be curious for Sai to, explain the piece around the ambivalence and the paradox. So if you can highlight that, then we can have an exploration or a conversation about it. That said, Neeraja, let's go back to the theme of the imposter syndrome and see how this framework comes into play and could be a tool for reference when imposter syndrome is at play for us as women, as leaders, as women leaders.
Absolutely. So so I also did this exercise, and I kind of was looking at the scores, and then I was looking at all the questions together, because at that point in time it was individual. Now when you bring it all together, there's more reflection that's happening. And then I thought about the story that I narrated, while I think Meera also mentioned 10 years ago I would have been different, because what I was also saying that maybe 3 years ago I would have been different. I'm thinking that it is probably not to do with age or maturity, or I did it then like that, and now I have more experience. I think it's not the experience part is what I'm feeling. I'm not saying yes to any opportunity today just because I've got experience in those kinds of opportunities. Not at all. I'm putting my hand to do really different things, and I'm saying let's go with the flow and see what's kind of going to happen. But when this come to me, the score has come to me, I'm still seeing that I seem to be the propensity one where everything has to be by the book. That's what it's telling me. Everything has to be by the book, which is what I've always been, I guess, and I continue to be like that. But in certain situations, I keep the book away. And I don't want to play the book. I kind of say, let's try. What's the worst that can happen? And hence maybe I'm moving into some other box here. That's what my reflection is, and hence I'm able to move ahead. I'm not stopping myself. I'm not blocking myself, And that's probably a need for every person, and especially a leader, to kind of, be able to grow in the organization. And for all those stereotypes that are kind of labeled for women, gender stereotypes, to say, she's not going to take a risk, or maybe she's going to ask for a lot of flexibility. So for the rest of the world to say, let's not even give the opportunity to her, the only way to kind of put a stop there is to do that reflection and say, this is the playbook that I have, let me do something differently, and be aware of these propensities and from which propensity do I want to act in that situation. What do you think, Bhavana? Is that a right reflection after all of this?
I'm absolutely enjoying this, because I think what you just said was that, I have the propensity of going by the book. If I go back to the narration of your story, what you were saying was that there is a certain set of accomplishments, a set of hoops that you should have crossed. There should be a certain credentials for you to have become the jury member at the MIT Innovation Program, and that if you had earned those stripes, then you were legitimate to have been on the jury panel. That's a framework that you're working with. And that is typically the framework of somebody who would be predominantly propensity one. And predominant propensity one is about structure. This is how it works. This is the rule. You know that rule. I know that rule. You should have ticked off this, that, and the other, and we just go with it. There is no adventure there. There is no sense of exploration. There is no, okay, we'll see, how does this work out, etc. It is quite likely you may have done it intuitively, that you had a sense of play and you had a sense of adventure. And when you have a sense of play, adventure, let's see what happens with this, and or a sense of accomplishment. Sometimes it is about ambition. Sometimes it could have been a case of saying, I need to be able to have be able to say that I'm on the jury panel for an MIT program. It is prestigious. I earn it. Yeah. Irrespective of the self-doubt, irrespective of the imposter syndrome. So my guess is that you were able to put your dominant propensity aside and deploy the propensity two, which was at play at that time, or which could have enabled your growth at that time. That's an example of somebody who can step back from a context or a situation and say, what is the choice that I want to make, irrespective of what my preference is or what the expectation of someone else is. And I would be very curious whether the audience has any reflections on, the imposter syndrome themselves, their own experience of how they relate with the idea, and how has that come up. Smita, would you like to help us with that conversation with the participants as to, would they like to share?
Anybody on the group wants to share anything where they had encountered any imposter syndrome and how did they handle it? It's okay. It's perfectly fine if you want to say that, this is how I handled. Maybe now when I reflect, I could have done something like what Neeraja mentioned, right? We'll just say yes and we'll handle it when we get there. So anybody wants to share any such experience?
Yeah, hi Neeraja and Bhavana, Sai here.
Hi, Sai, go for it.
Yeah, so I have been reflecting on the paradox of, polarities in leadership and imposter syndrome for quite some time now, last 2-3 years. And I think one of the key things is, there is this natural self, your core value versus what you experience, and then you form a belief system out of it, right? And they are sometimes so that's the learned self. So there is sometimes a conflict between both. So a response to a lot of these statements here is part of the learned self and part of the natural self. And, you know, they stay constant or they may vary. In terms of imposter, and that's what happens when you actually relate to when it works with imposter syndrome. And I completely agree that both men and women can experience it. It's not only gender based. It can be based on many ideas of life and existence. And one thing which I've experienced while leading teams is I was thinking about coaching. And when I see that with men, women, you know, across hierarchies, I do find also examples of men struggling with the ability to assert themselves, and they are not truly understood for being empathetic and compassionate. And women are all often, at least I have struggled a lot in terms of, you know, moving from the journalism field to the corporate field. I have often found this challenge with having to change myself. You know, we are too aggressive. And those kind of statements I've heard. So what happened is, you know, you sort of become quiet and then you sort of say no, like what Neeraja ma'am was saying, you know, you tend to say no, you negate yourself, and then you learn how to delay your no's and yeses. You know, so you don't want to miss the opportunity. At the same time, you feel, you know, am I going for too much? Is this too much? Am I being aggressive? Am I being too assertive? So there's this inner critique, and I do feel that it's very contextual. You know, if you have had experiences which are not of a particular nature, then maybe it would be a little easy for you to negotiate. So that's the imposter syndrome with respect to paradox, which I wanted to share. I hope it's makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Neeraja, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so I was just going to, agree again. The words are right. Experiential, right? So our experiences determine our actions, but the point is that also the kind of character we are, the personality that we are. So if we are probably the kind of personality as I am, which is do the right thing always, and somebody has defined the right. Okay, and that's probably been given to me, and I will always do the right thing. So there are both. There is also our experiences. So it could have worked well. It may not have worked well. But along with that is the point of, I am a particular character, and hence I merge both of them, and then I take the decision, or I take the action. So I was curious, Bhavana, when you spoke about this conversation you had with this young person who said imposter syndrome. Did you do any reflection yourselves after that? So you are probably the particular kind of propensity, as Bhavana is, but in this context, did you reflect, and did you kind of decide to accept maybe that feedback and see what you can do about it by moving to, say, another quadrant, another propensity? Did that happen automatically? Did you have to consciously do something like that?
So here's my story about that. Of course, I was pretty upset. I had all my associations with who an imposter is, and I also had a certain quality of arrogance about myself, which is that, like, how could I be this? Like, I'm not this typical young woman or a typical woman who will be cowed down by self-doubt. And I had all these ideas. However, you scratch that surface a little bit, and I'm like any other woman. I'm like any other person. And I have my self-doubts. I have questions, and I have a critic. And I have a critic that is like screaming into my ears, into everything that I do. So of course I had to reflect on it, and I reflected, and it was very painful. But if you look at the 4 propensities, and I request Shireen to put that up again, in my case, my story, and that's slightly different from yours, is that I am high on B, which is why I said the B club, right? So I am this person who has a certain playfulness or a adventure streak or a desire to go into the unknown and do some stuff. For me to explore my imposter syndrome, I actually had to get in touch with being kind and empathetic to myself, which is propensity 3, which is about saying it's possible. Think about that part of you that may feel vulnerable, that might feel hurt, that wants to protect itself, and you don't want to step into the arena for the fear of being judged. And can you be kind to yourself? So, for example, like I said, even this right now streaming on Facebook is just giving me this like there's a nervous part of me right now, and I'm saying, okay, it is what it is. Maybe I will fall flat on my face and it will not be good enough, but I will learn from it. It's probably my baby step. It's okay. I don't have to be this accomplished warrior woman, etc. And can I be kind and empathetic towards myself? And that, makes it soft and easier for me to grapple with my imposter syndrome. Slightly different from yours.
Definitely, yeah. There are many more people on this call today, and we are happy to kind of hear from them. But based on what Meera and Sai said just now, and on the reflections that Bhavana and I had, I know it's very new. We just kind of introduced all of this to you. But in these 10-15 minutes, did you have any reflections of trying to be a little different or act from a different quadrant for any of your stories which was coming into your mind? Do you think it is even possible for you to kind of take a step back and reflect and say, okay, fine, though I have said, for picture 1 I'm high on B, do you think I should try and be a high on C on that and see how that kind of transforms myself and what are the kind of outcomes that I get? Anybody who's been able to do that reflection in these last 10-15 minutes on any story of yours, anything that came to your mind, we would like to hear that out.
I think I agree with you. Just to add one of the small stories that we have had the recent interactions with is as VMware, a company of culture and where we talk a little more and work towards diversity and inclusion. One of the challenges that we had is bringing in the acceptance of different community to the workplace, right? So pride was one of the big things that we always strived and made people comfortable doing it, right? So this was one of the opportunity where, first of all, people coming out of the shell, either to recognize themselves or even to be comfortable with people sitting next to them who recognize a little differently, right? So one of the conversations, if you remember, Gauri Sawant, she is one of the recognized persons who belongs to the LGBTQI, and she leads efforts over it. And when we brought her to the forum and we were having conversations with her, that story, initially when we started this pride and everything, even I used to hesitate, right? I am an ally, but how do I even stand? Does people have judgmental thoughts? That was my first, out of comfort zone situation, right? And then it was like, come on, this is what we are getting ourselves trained on. We are getting ourselves to probably self-introspect ourselves for, right? So I think the last year when we started the initiation of creating the awareness and sensitization, and this year when we did in a little more matured and a more formal way, the acceptance from the people and probably even from my end, moving out of that comfort zone for some time. And it was just that I had to make a decision quick. Are you comfortable? Can you get out of this comfort zone? I think that was one thing. It made me think and introspect. And as you said, right, sometimes, I think one of the persons, I'm sorry, I was just listening to her. She was having a background from journalism. I think she was trying to say that yeses and nos, we start thinking double time, right? So I think that's where I had a small story where, you come from a very orthodox family, you come from a different zone, your learning cultures are different, upbringing is different, but when you get into a wider forum and you have the exposure, that's where you really have to make that statement, right? And you have to really stand out of it. And that was one of the stories. I'm not sure whether I'm connecting 100% to what you're expecting. That really made a difference to me.
Thank you for saying that, Meera. I'd like to offer something here. One is that I think we have to recognize the fact that the environment, the world in general, especially the corporate world, is dominant with the propensity B. And therefore, it is very likely, B and A, quite possible, a healthy mix, but accomplishment, pushing, competitiveness is likely to be more recognized than anything else. And the only way to find your place or claim your space, etc., is likely to be that you hone and you groom that one quadrant of your personality over a period of time. And what that does is that while just like you said, Pyle, was it Pyle who said this, that there are many questions which are in the other quadrants as well. Yeah, so the point is that we have the seeds of everything, of all the aspects of our personality. However, it's like that muscle that you work on. So if you are going to build one part of your body and work and practice one muscle, that is going to become stronger than anything else. You will have one or two elements in the other. It's unlikely that you will not have all the others, depending on how you have worked on it. The key to this framework, one, is our ability to observe ourselves and see what is coming up. Given our life experiences, given who we are likely to have an instinctive response. Do we have the ability to step back and say, can I have other options? Could I do this differently? That ability is the key. And you have the seeds for all the others. It's just a question of practicing and deploying them or figuring out a healthy combination of these. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be a
I totally agree with you, Bhavana. I think that was a very nice thing of saying that, where you're focusing on one of the muscles and ignoring something else, right? The right mix of it. And probably, I think one of the point that you said, I also liked it, like when we look back and, what better can we do in making the next decisions, I think a little homework probably, and self-conscious or a self-motivated initiative, that's a good thought. And sometimes, we stick on to the thought, right? We just stay that, this is how we are and this is what we want to be. I think that's a good point. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Over to you, Neeraja.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is, at the end of the day, it is for us to make things happen. While all of us, and most of us, are senior women leaders, and you've kind of dealt with so much, and we are where we are today. And in the last few years, there's so much that organizations are also doing to support the women, and in terms of growth. And I don't want to call it as a quota system, but definitely there's enough and more support provided in every way so that the woman is also able to accomplish and grow. But there is also so much that we need to do, which is what we're trying to explore today. When someone says she had it all, or it was easy for her, maybe the rest of the world, enabled her to do that. That's how we usually look at someone who's achieved. Whatever the definition of achievement is, it is probably different for each of us. But the point here is that whatever we want to achieve, and if we feel there are stumbling blocks, It could be because of the regular stereotypes, or if we want to externalize and say the rest of the ecosystem is not allowing us to. It just takes this bit of reflection. And this is a framework that we just kind of showcased today. There's a framework to say, okay, fine, can we reflect on which is the propensity that you are at, and in which situation you actually work from that propensity, because we all have seen from the answers to this quiz that the numbers are different for different questions. And with that reflection, can we try to move the needle a little to say, okay, let me try and act from a different quadrant for this particular situation and see how it plays out. Maybe if we still want to bank on our experiences, maybe we create those experiences for ourselves by moving away from, the comfort zone to a little bit of, the discomfort is what, I would like to suggest.
No, thank you for that. What that triggered for me was this, that, and it's a little bit what Meera said as well, which is that, if we are too tied in to an identity of our own, and one way of saying that I am this, and this is my response, and there is a static identity, then the growth is unlikely. However, each one of us is actually not just the identity that we recognize today, but much more, many more identities, many more dimensions. And that requires a little bit of a play, and it requires a little bit of an experimentation of the new things, the new identities that we may want to add to our personality, so that we can then choose from a quiver full of arrows or a repertoire of what we want to deploy in which particular circumstance. So it is about not being static with just one identity, but having more than one. And having more than one will require an ability to step back, observe, experiment, practice, and build those muscles over a period of time.
Absolutely. At this point in time, I would once again like to call out and ask the others on this, call, on this webinar, if they would like to put through any comment, any question, or experience sharing, any reflections in the last 15 minutes based on the conversations Bhavana, Meera, and Sai have had, Smita has also had. At the end of the day, if things have to change, we want to also hear from others. And we would like to kind of help in that thought process. If someone else wants to join in to this conversation, more than happy to. I think we have another 10 minutes to go. Sai,
hey, hi.
Sorry, yes, Neeraja, please.
Yeah, hi. First of all, I just wanted to say, Bhavana, you're doing perfectly fine on Facebook Live. So congratulations, and don't worry too much about that. You seem to be a natural. I think the only thing that's been playing on my mind as I heard this entire conversation was I've spent about 22 years in the corporate world, and organically somehow through lots of hits and misses, one learns to deploy different propensities at different points in time. That happens, and laboriously we've kind of learned how to do it. And when I looked at that framework, what came to mind is the fact that the fact that I had different ones in different with different pictures. It wasn't in kind of bucketed in one space. Made me realize probably the fact that you've learned to deploy different propensities out of just the experience of 22 years and situations that you've been in, right? And it could have been so useful to actually have a tool or a framework like this 10 years ago when you were starting off facing the challenges that you do as a woman leader. And it'll be wonderful if you can actually take it to other young women leaders, because they, of course, all of us on this call need it, but they probably would have a much easier ride than a lot of us have had with these kind of frameworks and perspectives in place. So congratulations to you guys, and really helpful. And I really hope we find a way of getting it to more young women leaders and make their lives and journeys easier as we go ahead. But thanks so much, everyone.
Surely, agree that, let's catch them young. by have them, grow up in this manner, and then, do the reflections of the last 20 years. And I definitely agree with you, Anja. We will definitely
Absolutely.
ensure that our audience is diverse in that
Yes.
perspective also. Anybody else who would like to add on to this?
You want a male voice?
Vivek.
Yes, please.
No, so there are several stories that I kind of got in touch with when I listened to a lot of the conversations, right? And I still remember when I joined this, this multinational company. I think it was my second or third job, and this is my fourth day of work or something like that. And they had an all-hands meet, and I was a very avid sports follower, so I could pretty much, I had all the data, everything on my fingertips. I knew who won which Wimbledon, which year, and everything. I mean, pretty much every sport, right? And so in this all hands meet, there was this whole quiz which was happening, and then they had this serious agenda, and then there's this quiz, and then some guy was sitting next to me, and then they were asking all these questions, and I pretty much knew the answer to everything. And I kept telling people around and saying, this is the answer, this is the answer, this is the answer. And everybody answered and got the respective prizes. And I just sat there and, it just, I didn't obviously have a title to it called imposter syndrome and all of that. I also did not have the experience of having working through propensities and everything. And I'm so much in touch with everything that's happening. And I'm able to actually identify incidents, identify situations where a lot of this came alive for me. I think another sense of maybe one more sense of validation is when we start working at it from a archetypal space, right? When we talk from a propensity space, it's not so much about the gender. And I think it's an important thing to, while I could be any of those experiences that the other women shared, and that's true for lots of men as well. And I'm sure if I had more stories to share, a lot of women would relate to those stories as well. So oftentimes we do get, in some sense, held back by certain, our own limitations that we hold about some of these. And I think it's this whole idea of propensities is a very interesting lens that it offers for us to start looking at our own assumptions that we hold for ourselves. That came alive so much for me, and it's one of the things that since I've been working with this for some time, and every time there's an opportunity for a conversation around this, something new always pops up, and that's the beauty of this space. So yeah, lovely.
Thanks, Vivek, for joining in. Is there any other sharing anyone wants to do? Otherwise, we will hand it over to Smita. Bhavana, any last comments?
I'm just curious and wondering why a large group of women with the propensity B are so quiet. I feel like provoking the tigress in them and wondering, I'm curious. I am so curious that, did this not trigger anything? Why are they not claiming their space? Why are they not bringing their voice in? So that's a thought, but it is what it is.
Fair enough. A point.
To Smita?
Yeah, maybe they are mulling over the new insights that you have provided. Okay, and they are processing it, digesting it. Maybe you'll get a lot of emails on your LinkedIn in a couple of days asking you too many things and sharing too many responses. So we'll wait to look at that. While Vivek was sharing, I was thinking of a situation where, as he rightly said, men come up with those imposter syndrome. And in a couple scenario, when a woman does not have that syndrome, so how does that balance out? Okay, and I have seen in my life, my parents are exactly that. Okay, my father is, waiting, not jumping in, not doing things, whereas my mother's all there up. Yeah, so it is, nothing is holding her back, right? So, and I see that I have imbibed that from her, I feel, and I think my husband takes a little bit from my father. I don't know how that works, but it does. So yes, I think it's a personality. It doesn't actually attached to a gender, as Vivek rightly said. It is what it is. And thank you very much. I think I definitely have a great insight when I hear you, Bhavana and Neeraja. I've been following you on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for all that insights that you all provided. It is a new concept for many people. They're trying to understand this from this perspective, and we'll be looking and watching the space, okay, to understand this better and be able to share our experiences. So if there is any page where we can put it up, it'd be great. Kelp HR is happy, and Quinnergy will be happy to hear from all of you. You'll have spent so much time here, all the participants on this. So y'all can write to us. Email ID is, I think Shireen's email ID was provided in various contacts. You can write to us, or you can write to me, Smita at kelphr.com. We will be sharing it with Bhavana and Neeraja. You can find them on LinkedIn. So it would be amazing to get connected. And please reach out if women leaders, there's a group in Quinnergy which supports women leaders on WhatsApp. We could add you to that group also and share our insights and churn out thoughts and processes. Thank you very much. And with that, I think, can I call it a day?
Definitely. As a last, parting shot, I would only say this, I'm a fan of Sheryl Sandberg and the book Lean In, and she says that if you're offered a seat on the rocket ship, don't ask which one, just jump on it. And because Bhavana, you said there are a lot of people who did not, speak up, I only want to leave them with that comment. And please reflect based on the grid that we showed you today. Is there any small shift that you wish to do so that in the next session, whichever session it is, you would like to speak up a little bit? Thank you, Smita. Thank you.
That is my WhatsApp note, by the way.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, that is exactly what my WhatsApp. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you, Kelp HR, for organizing this. I totally enjoyed myself. I think I explored a new part of myself, and very grateful to have had that exchange and dialogue. I do think that it's good to be left with questions, because our biggest personal growth happens in the journey between the question and the answer.
Absolutely.
There is no rush to get to the answer. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.